Hello and welcome. In this video, we're traveling back to 1918, a time when the world was just emerging from the horrors of the First World War, only to face something even deadlier. The Spanish flu would spread faster than any enemy army, striking young and old alike and claiming more lives than the war itself. Over the next few minutes, we'll uncover where it began, how it swept across the globe, and the lessons it left behind for future generations. This is the story of the pandemic that shook the world. In the spring of 1918, a world weary from war dared to hope for peace. The guns of the Western Front had fallen silent, and soldiers dreamed of returning home. But an unseen enemy was about to unleash a devastation that would dwarf even the Great War. What began as a whisper in military camps would soon become a global cry of anguish. As a pandemic unlike any in living memory swept across continents, leaving millions dead in its wake, the world of 1918 stood at a precarious crossroads. Nations drained by years of conflict struggled to rebuild shattered economies and care for vulnerable populations. As troop ships and trains carried soldiers back to their families, they unknowingly transported something far more sinister, a virus that would exploit the weaknesses of a war-torn world. The origins of this deadly influenza remain shrouded in mystery. Some point to Kansas, others to France or China. But wherever it began, the virus found fertile ground in the crowded camps and trenches of World War I. Eyewitnesses describe soldiers collapsing overnight, their faces turning an eerie blue as they gasped for air. Yet in those early days, few recognized the true threat that loomed on the horizon. As spring turned to summer, a deceptively mild first wave swept through populations. Governments, still focused on the war effort and desperate to maintain morale, downplayed the danger. Wartime censorship muzzled newspapers, preventing the spread of potentially alarming news. This fateful underestimation would set the stage for catastrophe. When autumn arrived, the virus returned with terrifying force. Mutated into a far more lethal strain, it struck with shocking speed. Victims who seemed healthy at breakfast could be dead by nightfall. Hospitals, already strained by years of war, buckled under the onslaught of patients. Nurses worked to the point of collapse, tending to the sick even as they themselves fell ill. The scenes in cities around the world were apocalyptic. Mass graves were dug as burial teams struggled to keep pace with the mounting dead. Entire families were wiped out within days, leaving homes silent and streets eerily empty. The virus showed a cruel preference for young adults in their prime, those aged 20 to 40. Their strong immune systems, paradoxically, often made the disease more deadly, triggering a devastating overreaction known as a cytokine storm. Public health officials scrambled to respond, implementing quarantines and mask mandates. They closed schools, theaters, and churches in a desperate bid to slow the spread. Yet even then, some protested these measures as an infringement on personal liberty, a haunting echo of debates that would resurface in future pandemics. The Red Cross and volunteer nurses played crucial roles, but medical staff shortages exacerbated by the war left many communities defenseless. The pandemic knew no borders. From the bustling ports of Asia to the remote villages of Africa, from the crowded tenements of Europe to the frontier towns of the Americas, the virus found its way. Shipping routes and railroads, once symbols of progress, became deadly highways for contagion. Rural areas, often lacking medical resources, suffered in different ways than densely packed cities. As 1919 dawned, a third wave of infections swept the globe. Though less deadly than its predecessor, it still claimed countless lives. Gradually, the pandemic began to fade. Some theorize the virus mutated into a less lethal form, while others believe it simply ran out of vulnerable hosts. Yet in some regions, outbreaks would continue to flare for years to come. The human cost was staggering. Conservative estimates place the death toll between 50 and 100 million. More lives lost than in the entirety of World War I economies lay in ruins. Trade disrupted and the social fabric of communities torn apart. A generation of orphans and widows faced an uncertain future in a world forever changed. Yet from this tragedy, important lessons emerged. The pandemic gave birth to modern epidemiology and spurred the creation of robust public health systems. It underscored the critical importance of rapid information sharing and laid the groundwork for advances in vaccination and virus research that would save countless lives in the decades to come. As the world slowly rebuilt, the memory of the Spanish flu faded with surprising speed. Perhaps overshadowed by the war that preceded it, or simply too painful to dwell upon. This devastating chapter of history was often relegated to footnotes, but its echoes would be felt in every subsequent outbreak, from SARS to COVID-19. Reminding us that nature's microscopic armies can still bring humanity to its knees. The Spanish flu pandemic stands as a testament to both human fragility and resilience. It reminds us that in the face of global threats, cooperation and scientific understanding are our greatest weapons. As we look to the future, we must heed the warnings of the past. For the lessons of 1918, written in the tears of millions, are only valuable if we have the wisdom to listen and the courage to act.